Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 1. Arjun Uvacha. Sanyasam karmanam Krishna Purna Yogam Shasan Shashi. Yes Chaitra Aitiro Yorekam Tasmai Bruhi Shunishchitam.
Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work. Then again, you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which one of these two is more beneficial?
Sannyasa karma yogascha nihi shreyasakara vubhar. Ayostu karma sannyasat karma yogo vishishyate.
The personality of God said, replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work.
Shreyaha sa nitya sannyasi yod nadristi na kakshate. Nirdvando hi mahabaho sukham bandhata pramuchyate.
One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated, O mighty Arjuna.
Sankhya yogo pruthak bala pravadanti na pandita ekampya stita samya gubhayo vendate phalam.
Only the ignorant speak of devotional service, karma yoga, as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both.
Yet Sankhya prapyate sthanam tada yogerapi gamyate ekam sankham cha yogam cha yah pashyati sapashyati.
One who knows that the position reached by the means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are.
Sannyasasti mahabaho dukmabdu yogadaha yoga yukto mune brahma the chirena di gachati.
Merely renouncing all activities yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay.
Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriyaha sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvan nalipyate.
One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled.
Neva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvita pashyan shunva sprishan jigran gachan swapana swashan. Shall I say the 9 as well? They are together.
I think so, because the translations are both of them, right?
Pralapana Vishrujana Gruda Rushi Grudan. That's a bit hard one. Gruhana Mishanapi Indriyateshu Vardanta Iti Dharayan.
A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all, because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are entangled with their objects and that he is aloof from them.
Brahmanadhaya karmani sangham tyakta karoti yata lipyate nasapapena padya patra mivamrasa.
One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful activities as the lotus leaf is untouched by water.
Karyena mansa bhutva kaivale rendriye rapi yogina karma kurvanti sangham tyaktatma shuddhaye.
The yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification.
Yuktam karma phalam tyaktva shanti mapnoti naisthikam ayukta kamakarena phale sakto nipadyate.
The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the results of all activities to me, whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled.
Sarva karmani mansa sanyasyaste sukham vashi naudvare pure dehi naiva kurvatra karyan.
When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done.
Na kartutvam na karmani lokasya sujati prabhu na karma phala sanyogam swabhavastu pravartate.
The embodied spirit master of the city of his body does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature.
Nadatte kasya dita papam na chaiva sukrata vibhu agyane na vratam jnanam tena grubhyanti jantava.
Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge.
Jnanena tu tat jnanam yesham nashita maptana tesham dityan Pagyanam prakashayati tatparam.
Do you mind if we just scroll down, please, on the translation? Thank you. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nayscience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime.
Tatput yastatatmanam stanistatparayana gacchantya punravritim jnana nirduta kalmasham.
When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation.
Vidya vinaya samphanne brahmane garvihastine shuni chaivascha pakecha Panditaha Samadarshina.
The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater.
Iheva te jita sarga yesham sanye sitam mana nidoshi sam brahma tasmada brahmani te sitam.
Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman.
Na prahashyeta priyam prapya no dvijeta prapya cha priyam stira buddhir sammudo brahma vida brahmani sita.
A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon attaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence.
Brahmyasvaseshva sakatma vidvatmani yata sukham sa brahma yoga yuktatma sukham kshayam manushyate.
Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always entranced, enjoying the pleasures within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme.
Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukhyo naya evate adyanta vantah konteya na teshu ramate buddha.
An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses, O son of Kunti. Such pleasants have beginning and end, and so the wise man does not delight in them.
Shaknoti haiva yaha sodram praka sharira vimokshana kama krodhodbhavam vegam sayukta sa sukhi nara.
Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of material senses and check the forces of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world.
Yo anta sukho antara ramastathanta jyotirrayvaya sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhuto digacchati.
One whose happiness is within, and who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme.
Labhante brahma nirvanam rushaya kshina kalmasha chinna dvaidaya tatmanam sarvabhuta hite staha.
Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, and who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme.
Kama krodha muktanam yati nama yata chaitasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartante viditatmanam.
Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future.
Sparshan krutva bahi bahyam chakshushchaivantare bhavo Pranapano
Recording in progress.
samokritya nashambhadaracharena yatendriya mano buddhi mune moksha parayana Vikatecha bhayakrodhoya sada mukta eva cha.
Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated.
Bhoktaram yakyatapsam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mama shanti muchati.
A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the prangs of material miseries.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Leena
Hare
Mataji and
Krishna.
Luke Prabhu. That was really nice to recite it. Thank you.
Sorry
Yeah.
for few mistakes.
No, that's okay. I mean, Krishna sees your endeavor more than the mistakes, but it's very nicely recited. So today's verse is chapter 5, verse number 4. So I'll just recite these verses. Sankhya yoga pitag balaha pravadanti napanditaha ekamapi astita samyak ubayo vindate phalam. Okay, sorry. Sankhya, analytical study of the material world. Yoga, work in devotional service. Pitak, different. Pata, the less intelligent, the less intelligent. Pravadanti, say, na, never. Panditaha, the learned. Ekam, in one. Api, even. Ashtita, being situated. Samyak, complete. Ubayo, of both. Vindati, enjoys. Phalam, the results. So, the translation, only the ignorant speak of devotional service, karma yoga, as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. Prabhupada by Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The aim of the analytical study of this material world, is to find the soul of existence. The soul of the material world is Vishnu, or the super soul. Devotional service to the Lord entails service to the super soul. One process is to find the root of the tree, and the other is to water the root. The real student of Sankhya philosophy finds the root of material world, Vishnu, and then in perfect knowledge engages himself in the service of the Lord. Therefore, in essence, there is no difference between the two because the aim of both is Vishnu. Those who do not know the ultimate end say that the purposes of Sankhya and Karma Yoga are not the same, but one who is learned knows the unifying aim in these different processes. So once again, the translation reads, only the ignorant speak of devotional service, Karma Yoga, has been different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who actually learn it say he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. So I'll recite the invocation prayers and kindly pray to the Supreme Spiritual Master, Sri Baladev, that he could empower me to speak something which is pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam yena bhutale swayam rupa kadamayam tadati swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Gurum Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shikamatamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopishwa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhana Sati Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Tinamine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Vasyarcha Desitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, thank you everyone for joining in for tonight's chat session. Tonight's verse was chapter 5, Karma Yoga, and the verse was number 4. So I kindly pray for the blessings of all the devotees listening, to those who are senior to me, those who are junior to me as well. Kindly pray that you can give me your blessing so I can speak. And if I make any offenses, kindly forgive me. So this particular verse, it talks about Sankhya Yoga. In the Bhagavad-Gita, as we know, there are many different kind of yogas that Krishna describes to Arjuna, starting off with Karma Yoga, fruitive activities. And this particular chapter, Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. And then, of course, he speaks about Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, which is meditation or yoga postures that allow you to concentrate on the Supreme Lord. And then ultimately, there's Bhakti Yoga, which is a pure devotional service. But here, the word Sankhya Yoga, there is no particular chapter in the Bhagavad Gita that actually says Sankhya Yoga. So what is Sankhya Yoga itself? Sankhya Yoga is the analytical study of the material energy and the spirit soul. And this was really nicely described by the great sage. Does anybody know which particular sage or incarnation of Krishna? Kapila Muni, yeah? That's very good. Yes, Kapila Muni described the Sankhya philosophy, the analytical study of the material elements and the spirit soul to his mother, Devahuti. So we'll read a little extract from that later on. So Krishna here, Arjuna here, he's getting a bit confused. He's asking Krishna, you're asking me to become renounced in my life. But then also you're asking me about this philosophy of Sankhya Yoga, I don't understand. You're asking me to do Karma Yoga at the same time. But sannyas means to actually surrender everything completely. But although sannyas is actually surrendering everything, renouncing yourself, detaching yourself from the material elements, but it's not the only means to actually understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The means to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead is through intelligence. That intelligence comes by following the sadhu, shastra, and
Bharti, Aja bete.
If you could mute yourself, please. So it's important that we actually follow the scriptural injunctions to actually get to the purification level of the becoming a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. So Krishna is actually explaining that just becoming renounced is not good enough. You have to understand to work in such a way that every activity that you do is as an offering to the Supreme Lord, or actually pertains to devotional service. So here it talks about devotional service as karma yoga, but karma yoga, devotional service, as we know, when you transcribe it, it's actually bhakti yoga. So Krishna is actually explaining karma yoga as bhakti yoga. Hare Krishna, if you can mute yourself, please. Just 1 minute, see if I could. Okay, hopefully that's a bit better. So what are the this material energy? What is the material energy? From the Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand there are 24 main material elements that make up this material energy. There are the 5 working senses, which consist of the hands, legs, tongue, rectum, genitals. There's 5 knowledge acquiring senses. And there is also the Pancha Mahabhuta. The Pancha Mahabhuta, sometimes referred to as the 5 material elements. These are the great elements of the material energy. This is earth, water, fire, air, and ether, or sometimes sky. Then also there's 3 subtle energies. So this material body is made of the gross elements, which is earth, water, fire, air, ether, but it also has a subtle body as well, which is the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And false ego is just the basis or principle of this material existence. False ego, we have this pride, I, me, mine, and that actually prevents us from understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we have to turn that false ego into pure ego, where we want to just completely surrender to Krishna himself. So there is a particular verse in the Bhagavad-Gita. Krishna tells Arjuna, earth, water, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, these 8 separated are my separated material energies. So these are the main energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But also there's further elements of the material energy. These are the 5 sense objects as well. So sometimes referred to as rupa, form, rasa, which is taste, gandha, smell, and shabd, which is sound, the sound vibration, very important. And then there's the touch element as well. So these are quite important. I'm just going to share you something. If somebody would like to read with me about Sankhya philosophy. Is there any volunteer who would like to read the paragraph? So for the Sankhya philosophy?
Do it, Prabhuji.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So start from the Sankhya philosophy. Can you see on the screen? Did
Not
somebody
yet.
volunteer?
Not yet, Prabhu.
Oh, is it? Okay, that's unusual.
I can see, Prabhuji.
You can see.
Oh,
Would you like to read it? Jolie, you can't see.
no, it's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
fine.
Okay, Prabhuji, I read it.
Yeah.
So the Sankhya philosophy is analytical study of the elements of creation. Sankhya Khyayate. Sankhya means completely. Khyayate. So how first of all there was a vibration, then from vibration there was sky, creation, beginning of creation. And then from sky there was sound, then from sound there was air, then from air there was electricity or fire, then from electricity there was water, and from water there is a land. This is shortly described. Then how his mind is created, intelligence is created, how the controller created. These are described in the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, also in many places.
Okay. So skip the next paragraph and then start from So Kapila Muni.
Okay. So Kapila Muni is incarnation of God. He described the Sankhya philosophy and Bhakti Yoga. In the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, his instructions are there. He was giving instruction to his mother, Devahuti. His father left him under the care of the mother. He went to the forest for liberation. So when he grew up, he instructed his mother. He is known. Should I continue, Prabhuji?
Oh, yeah, Prabhuji, yeah.
He is known, Kapil Deva is known as Devahuti Putra, the son of Devahuti. All incarnation of God is famous, especially by mother's name. So just like Krishna is famous by Yasoda Nandana, Devaki Nandana, he is very much pleased when his name is made in connection with his mother and father, Nandanandana, Vasudeva Nandana. Similarly, here is also Devahuti Nandana, Devahuti Putra Kapila. So this Kapil Deva, Sankhya philosophy has described how the elements came in, how the subtle elements, mind, intelligence develop, how these gross elements, earth, water, fire, all these gross elements develop. So there are 8 elements, namely, they are described in Bhagavad-Gita also. 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether. There are gross elements, and the subtle or finer elements are the mind, intelligence, ego. There are 8 elements, and the subjects of senses perception and 10 sense organs. 10 sense organs, 5 subject matter of sense perception, 15. And these 18 elements, material elements, 15 and 8, 23. And Avyakta, or the living entity, and then God. In this way, the whole philosophy is described, that is called Sankhya philosophy.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the reason why I wanted to share that with everyone is to just to give you an idea who Kapila Dev was and how important he was in given the Sankhya philosophy. So some of you may think, well, this is all to do with chemistry lesson. You know, it's all to do with the elements. What's so important about it? Why do we need to understand all this? Why can't we just sing Hare Krishna and just take prasad to attain Krishna consciousness? Sorry,
What is that?
Okay. Just remember to mute yourself, please, Prabhuji, so it doesn't disturb everyone else in the class. So it's so important to understand about the importance about the elements. And most of all, as Prabhuji was reading, the last part is a yakta, or the living entity. That is the living force. The whole living force of this material universe, the manifestation, is Lord Vishnu, as we read in the this particular chapter 5, verse 4. Lord Vishnu is the supreme soul of this universe. And the whole importance about learning about these elements is the basis of everything is created from the supreme personality of Godhead Vishnu. Now, just like when you see sunlight, you know, whenever you see sunlight, there is no darkness at all. Wherever the sun is shining, if you look at a beautiful sunny day, is there any darkness at all? No, because the sun is pervading the whole universe. So similarly, the sun is compared to Lord Vishnu. Without Lord Vishnu, there's nothing that is actually of any benefit to mankind, because there would be no life, no sort of living force into any of these elements at all. So when there's sun, there's obviously the element of the light pervading the whole universe itself, which provides the juice to all that is growing. So sometimes you may have heard, or rather in the Back to Godhead magazine, it mentions about Godhead is light and Niscience is darkness. Wherever there is Godhead, there is no Niscience. So the importance of understanding Sankhya philosophy along with Bhakti Yoga is to understand that this importance about the spirit soul, who we are, why is the spirit soul so important? As we all understand, it's a minute particle of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just like a drop of water compared to an ocean. The quality may be the same as a little tiny drop as to the mighty ocean, but in terms of like the quantity, is far insignificant. So similarly, the spirit soul within our heart is actually a part and parcel of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although he's not divided or mitigated in any way by expanding himself into this innumerable number of spirit souls, Supreme Personality is always complete. Om Purna Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. The Supreme Personality is always a whole, and whatever is taken from that whole is also a complete whole itself, and it can never be divided in any way. So understanding about the elements of Sankhya philosophy is just as important as understanding Karma Yoga, as is important as understanding Bhakti Yoga itself. So that's why I wanted to bring those important points to you. So when I mentioned about lightness and darkness, there's a very beautiful verse in the Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, it's Madhya Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 31. I'll just quickly read this. This is also a little bit more description on Sankhya philosophy as well. So Krishna says Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya and yoga means direct connection with the Lord. Direct connection with the Lord. Just like in the darkness, in the darkness, you cannot see anything. Suppose your room is closed and you're dark, you cannot see anything. But when you come to light, you come to the sunlight. Then you can see yourself and everything very nicely. So yoga, this word yoga, means to come in direct touch with the absolute light or absolute truth. That is called yoga. So I'll just repeat that word. So yoga, this word yoga means to come in direct touch with the absolute light or the absolute truth. That is called yoga. So earlier on, I was mentioning about the different yoga systems of approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Karma yoga, Dhyana yoga, and of course Sankhya yoga, then eventually Bhakti yoga, the highest level of yoga. So there's different ways of attaining this absolute truth. So by analytical study of this material world, that is not sufficient. So just the material world, as we mentioned, just studying about the material world, just like the scientists do, it's not of any basis at all. Unless you come in direct touch with the supreme absolute truth, the knowledge has no value. This knowledge has no value. If you want, you can study anything, any straw in the street. You can make a very analytical study of the straw. But that sort of knowledge has no value unless you come to the point of our spiritual existence. So Krishna says, the idea of Sankhya Yoga, analytical study of this material world, means you have to find out the spiritual existence. And that spiritual existence you can have when you directly come to the spiritual life. So direct process is Krishna consciousness. Krishna is just like the sun. Krishna Surya Samaha Maya Haya Andakara Yahan Krishna Tata Nahi Maya Radhikara. From Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 31. Krishna is compared to sunshine, and Maya is compared to darkness. Wherever there is sunshine, there cannot be darkness. As soon as one takes to Krishna consciousness, the darkness of illusion, the influence of the external energy will immediately vanish. So, as I mentioned to you about Godhead, when I was talking about Godhead is light and Niscience is darkness, wherever there's Godhead, there is no Niscience. So, understanding the difference between just the material elements on its own has no value unless there's some purpose behind it. And in this case, Krishna is like compared to the living force, the living energy of the material energy itself, material world. So it's just like, scientists nowadays are sending rockets to different parts of the universe, but just sending rockets to other parts of the universe has no real value in it. But if it has some potential to take some images or take some information to anything that it wants to explore in the universe, the sky with its millions of different stars, or a particular planet on the surface, what lies on the surface, what atmospheres on the surface. Unless you have that information, then there's no value of sending a rocket to the to other parts of the world. So similarly, this understanding the material elements of this whole cosmic manifestation has no value unless you understand who is the creator behind it, what is the purpose behind this material universe. And that is the whole reason why Krishna created this material universe in a way that we can actually have this material body, have this intelligence to acquire sort of senses that allow you to use those senses in a way to understand more about Krishna. Who is Krishna? What value does Krishna have in our life? Who are we? What do we do? What is our purpose in life? Do we just work like an animal, eat, sleep, mate, and defend? Or is there a better element in our life? Is there a higher truth? What happens to us at the time of death? So these are the inquisitive questions that we should be asking. An inquisitive person is, in that particular verse, we were reading today, chapter 5, verse 4, Pandita. Krishna uses this word very often, Pandit. Pandit is very important. Pandit is a very learned person. Not just by Brahmanical qualities can one become a learned person. Not just by studying the philosophy of Krishna consciousness can one become a learned person. A learned person is one who is self-realized. He actually understands the purpose of life by abstaining from anything which is not favorable to Krishna, and also just doing or performing activities which are only pleasing to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in that same chapter, we read a particular verse. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision, a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. You know, from our point of view, when we see visually, we see different things based on our attraction. We obviously see an elephant, big, large, you know, mighty, and we see a dog, you know, running around in the street of a less important animal, and we see a dog eater. We tend to think of him as somebody who is completely abominable. But a humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, when he's actually self-realized, he sees that eternally the super soul resides within the heart of every living entity. So therefore, he sees everybody as a servant of Krishna. Although materially, externally, they may see different or may behave differently in different ways, or may have different characters, different personalities. And accordingly, the Brahmin, but he treats them all equally because he sees them as a servant of Krishna. So this is the stage that Krishna is trying to teach Arjuna to become self-realized by understanding that you are not this body, you're not this material element, earth, water, fire, ether, nor the subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego. You are actually a spirit soul, you know. And in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad-Gita, it explained elaborately about what the soul is. What is the purpose of the soul? What are the qualities of the soul, the characteristics of the soul? Not the soul, it's never born, it never dies at all. It's eternal, ever existing. It cannot be burnt by fire, moistened by water, or withered by the wind. And that which pervades the entire body is considered to be a symptom of the soul consciousness. So when we understand the Bhagavad-Gita, it's not just by reading it, but actually practicing it in our daily lives as well. Once again, where is that perfection come in our life? That comes from intelligence. So Krishna, from him comes intelligence, remembrance, and forgetfulness. And he is the ability in man. And that ability in man is the ability to use that intelligence in the correct way. So we see so many intelligent people in the world, in the universe. People have created so many wonderful things that allows human civilization to advance in so many ways. But that may be intelligence at a mature level. But higher intelligence is one who knows the difference between material life and spiritual life. Actually sees that everything is part and parcel of Krishna, everything is temporary, and the only thing which is eternal, which is the spirit soul and anything related to Krishna. Any activities in terms of like any spiritual entities which are related to Krishna. So it's important to understand that intelligence, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita as well. The verse, I can't remember. Oh yeah. So from Chatushloka, there's 4 important verses of the Bhagavad Gita. As we know, there's 700 verses in the Bhagavad Gita, of which 4 are prominent, which are considered the Chatushloka, 4 shlokas. And that's in chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita. And the verses are
8, 9, 10, 11.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bhagavati Bhataji. And the 10th or the 11th verse, I dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining, beg your pardon. I dwelling in their hearts, destroy and give them the, do apologize 1 minute.
With the shining lamp. With the shining lamp of knowledge, the darkness born of ignorance.
Prabhuji, you're on the mute, Prabhuji, we can't hear you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji,
Hare
are you
Krishna.
there?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I accidentally turned myself to mute. Yes, for some reason I just
I think
Thank you
it's to
so-
show them special mercy
Yep.
dwelling in the shrine,
Yeah.
their hearts. Yeah.
Yep. Show special mercy, I dwelling in the hearts. Show with the special mercy. You not destroy the
This true.
the ignorance within our heart. We all have ignorance in our heart, but it destroys it with a torchlight of knowledge. So
Mm.
that torchlight of knowledge is as we see, we read the different shastras, the Bhagavad-Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We hear from spiritual authorities, and it's so important to have a spiritual authority as well. You can't just follow blindly as well. So although Krishna is telling Arjuna, those who are actually learned and understands the results of the two paths, Karma Yoga and Sankhya Yoga, achieves the same results in the same way. But somebody could actually follow a different system. Say, for instance, somebody may believe in Christianity or maybe a follower of Islam. But also Krishna appears in different forms, in different yugas, at different times, at different places, at different circumstances. So it may be according to a certain circumstances, a certain time, or certain characteristics of the particular population. You may describe a certain philosophy in such a way that only those people intelligent at that level could understand. So when you think about the Bhagavad-Gita, although spoken 5,000 years ago, there were learned Brahmanas at that time who could understand the importance about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. But in this day and age, people do not understand so much. So within the Yuga system, we have Satya Yuga, we have Dwapara Yuga, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. And each of the yugas, there are different ways of actually attaining spiritual life. In Satya Yuga, it was performed by meditation. Now meditation, as you know, most people, if you try and meditate for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, it's very difficult. Even chanting one round, just completely focusing on Krishna is very, very difficult. But in Satya Yuga, people used to meditate, the yogas used to meditate for thousands and thousands of years. In Dwapara Yuga, at that time, the principles of religiosity was actually performing yajna itself. Yajna is in sacrifice. The idea was that you sacrifice everything for the pleasure of Lord Vishnu itself. Then in Treta Yuga, Satya, Dwapara Treta Yuga, the process of devotional service was actually performing deity worship, elaborate deity worship. You know, you can't imagine how much opulence they were performing during this deity worship itself, using thousands and thousands of gold coins to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in this age of Kali Yuga, if anybody wants to say the importance of this particular age, what is the benediction of spiritual life in this particular yuga? Does anybody know? Bhagavati Mataji?
Krishna Mahamantra.
Yes, it's chanting of the holy name, the Hare Krishna congregational chanting of the holy name. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, Kalo nashte, Kalo nashte, Kalo nashte eva gatyanyata. In this age of Kali, there is no other way, no other way, no other way, but by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, congregational chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Krishna has made it so easy. So demigods have actually said that it's better to take birth in Kali Yuga than any of the other yugas, because Krishna is given the privilege in this particular age of quarrel and hypocrisy. It may be one of the most difficult times in this particular yuga, because as you know, when the demon king Kali was trying to destroy or slaughter the bull, Dharmaraj, he slaughtered 3 of the legs of the bull, and the only one which is standing is truthfulness. So in this particular yuga only truthfulness is there. And as you can see, we've been very fortunate in some countries to have the legal system, the law system, which can be taken up in able to take law and order in this material world. But otherwise, apart from that, there is no austerity, there's no penance, there's no cleanliness at all in this material world. So in this yuga, demigods are happy to take birth in this material world, even though it's full of suffering, full of difficulties in their life, and full of misery. But they find that it's easier just to, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, by remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are able to go back to Godhead far quicker than any of the other yugas. But it's so. But that's thanks to the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Golden Avatar, who has propagated this mission of the Sri Krishna Sankirtan in every town and village. But the thing is, it's so important to understand, it's not just by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra will allow you to go back home, back to Godhead, because you can be chanting and chanting and chanting, which is very beautiful. But unless you're completely absorbed in spiritual devotional service, you may not be able to understand when you come through a difficult situation in our lives. We all come through difficult situations in our life. You know, we had this pandemic for the last 2 years. It seems to be going forever and ever. We've lost so many loved ones in our lives. We've lost so many spiritual leaders in our movement. And it's very difficult times for many of the devotees, many of the disciples who are just depending on the Supreme or the spiritual masters. And, you know, to answer these questions, reading the Bhagavad-Gita helps you intelligently what to do in certain circumstances, just like Arjuna, who was in a predicament. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to leave the battle, you know, he didn't care about winning or any prosperity, or he didn't care even losing. He'd rather commit suicide than to harm his own spiritual master, harm Bhishma Dev, harm his cousins. But Krishna explained about the importance about his duty. And so understanding about our spiritual duty is so important. And that's why we have these wonderful temples where we can come, take knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, participate in devotional service, participate in congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And of course, the special month of Christmas is the book marathon. We encourage everyone to participate in book marathon. You know, even if you may not be able to go out door to door, perhaps just phone up somebody, your friend, your neighbor, somebody at work, cousins, or anybody, you know, just wish them happy Christmas and say, Hare Krishna, how are you? What are you up to? What are you doing? Please, be nice to see you. Let's get together, chant some Hare Krishna Maha mantra together, cook some prasadam together, exchange gifts for one another. So many wonderful things that you can do. But this book distribution is so important because, as Krishna says, there's no much more devoted to me than one who glorifies about me to other people. So this book distribution, we should take it seriously. If you are able to participate, do get in touch with any of the devotees who are actually participating in book distribution. If you feel, you know, inspired, going out one day, you know, just going out door to door, or even taking a book for yourself and distributing it to your neighbor, please do so, because these books, you know, these are the threshold of allowing us, or the stepping stone for allowing us to unite to Krishna, to unite to his devotees. So it's so important that we try and do our best. That burden, as Krishna consciousness says, is so important that it's not just up to the spiritual leaders of this movement, it's not just up to the temple managers to preach this Krishna consciousness to all the fallen conditioned soul. We all take a responsibility on that. We all share a bit of a burden in preaching Krishna consciousness. And in one way, we call it a burden, but if you're really spiritually inclined in surrendering in your spiritual master, it does not become a burden at all. It becomes something of second nature that you would like to do to please your spiritual master, to please Supreme Personality of Godhead. Find a way of actually saying, Krishna, I'm completely dependent on you. I'm so fallen, I'm so conditioned, you know, what can I do to serve you? And of course, why do we chant the Hare Krishna mantra? The meaning of the Hare Krishna mantra means, my dear Lord, I am your humble servant. I have no value. Please, please, please engage me in your devotional service. But if you're chanting that over and over and over again, but actually not doing devotional service, then Krishna said, well, you're asking me to engage in devotional service, and I'm asking you to come and do some preaching to other people, who may benefit from this spiritual values in their lives as well, just like the way we have taken prashadam, distributing prashadam. That's another thing. Even if you can't distribute book, perhaps give an opportunity where you could cook something, offer it to the Supreme Lord, then go to your neighbors, your friends, your family members, Merry Christmas, Hare Krishna, please take some prashadam. And that spiritual prashadam, as you know, is free from sinful reactions because it's offered for love and devotion as a sacrifice to the Supreme Lord. And Krishna reciprocates. If one offers me with love and devotion, a leaf, flower, fruit, or water, I shall accept it. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. So just quickly go through my notes, see if I've covered everything. In the meantime, if anybody has some questions as well. Yep, I've more or less covered everything. If anybody wants to ask any questions, I'll just see if there's any in the chat group as well. Okay, it's a nice question from Sarabi Mataji. The text I saw said the so-called scientists, but these so-called scientists, I think, save lives by contributions to society. Is their work considered spiritual to some extent? So there's different type of scientists, We see the scientists who are like involved in medical research for the benefit of, finding out ways of eliminated diseases or any sort of ailments, health issues that people have or suffering in this world, like this pandemic. And there's also the scientists who are those who are completely atheists, who don't believe in the Supreme Lord, who sees that the spiritual universe created from, say, an explosion, some gases or so forth. So it's so important to understand the difference behind it. So although in society, there is some contributions by scientists made, to make advancements in technology. Like we have this laptop facility, it's allowing us to do things in a certain way. But when we use it for Krishna service, then naturally, it is actually of spiritual benefit itself. But the scientists that Prabhupada says, refers to as so-called scientists, are the atheists who don't believe in God and see that the material universe is created by itself, by some random sort of gases that came together, collided, and performed this universe. And how can we understand this beautiful supreme planet or material planet? Works in like clockwork. You see the sunrise, you see the sunset, you see the different seasons of the elements, and then also you see the varieties of fruits, the plants, the animals, the birds. Is it possible that everything happened by chance? Can anything be created by chance at all? Can like a simple watch be created by just random material energy? No, it has a creator, has a watchmaker, just like the creation has a watchmaker itself. So I hope that answered your question, Sarabi.
Thank you so much. So is that thought important or action important? The scientist who is working non-stop, is their thought process important, and they have no time for thinking about God and all that stuff, and or is their action towards society more important? And if their action is more important, will they get the mercy? Even if they're not thinking about it, but their action speaks volumes. So
yes,
actions are more important, or the thought process is more important?
Sure. So that's a nice point as well you made, Sarabi Mataji. So yes, the actions they may be doing it because that's their desire. They have this ambition. I want to become a doctor. I want to become a scientist. I want to become something that will benefit human mankind. There's no doubt that will benefit them in their future life, their spiritual life. They will certainly get good karmic reaction for that. But importantly, what we have to understand they may be doing it from an ignorant point of view. They may not know the full benefits behind it. So they may be doing it for material reasons. It may be for job status, or maybe for money, may not necessarily be for the prime benefit for humanity. And Srimad Bhagavatam actually says the prime occupation for humanity is that supreme occupation dharma, of which we can actually show our love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is pure bhakti, the highest level, by showing pure love to God. So if you see somebody like a complete beggar who has absolutely nothing, but he is very pure in nature, that he thinks, I don't have anything, but I'm happy because I just want to serve the Supreme Lord. Whatever I have, I'm happy to offer that to Krishna to sustain myself. But a scientist, on the other hand, may have an opulent, beautiful house and a beautiful career as a scientist, and they may be making some progress, some wonderful activities that will help benefit, like cancer research or heart diseases or something. There's no doubt he will get some benefit, but the benefit is in a different way. Just like it says in the Bhagavad-Gita that after many past life, they live in the heavenly planets and they enjoy the heavenly kingdom, like all the demigods itself. But eventually they do fall down. But when they do fall down into the material world, because of their good nature in their previous life, they are actually born in a Brahmanical family or an aristocratic family. And from there, they are able to progress in their spiritual life. So many thousands of lifetimes, a scientist may progress in his spiritual life, but at one point he may enjoy those fruits of activities, but it's more from a material point of view, Sarabi Mataji, rather than on a spiritual point of view. As a devotee, from a spiritual perspective, we just want to serve the Supreme Lord as a Supreme Master, as a Supreme Father, Supreme Son, Supreme Friend, and so forth. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. There is another question here. If yoga is about connecting with the Supreme Lord, and there's not a possibility of doing this with Sankhya, why is it known as one of the types of yoga? So I'll just read that question again. If yoga is about connecting with the Supreme Lord, if there is not a possibility of doing this with Sankhya yoga, why is it known as one of these types of yoga? So as I mentioned earlier on, Sankhya yoga is the analytical study of the material universe, of the 24 elements, but importantly, it's actually the living force behind this material universe. As we understand from the manifestations of the universe, Mahavishnu is meditating on the causal ocean. From the pores of his skin, when he breathes out, all the tiny bubbles come from the pores of his skin. These bubbles are massive universes. But what is it that's important about this material universe? On its own, it has no value. It may be material, if you have all the gold in the world, but nobody wants gold, it has no value at all. But when it has some value, just like this material world has the value of the understanding of the spirit soul. So that yoga connection is actually more of an intellectual level as well. It's actually understanding these spiritual elements. They are material elements created by the Supreme Lord, but the important part is the spirit soul, or the Supreme Soul, or the Supreme Father, that allows this universe to take its life, its form, its manifestation. So that is the link of our connection to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I may have not explained it in the best way that you may want it to answer, but I hope that answers to a certain level. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Jolie Mataji.
I thought you mentioned about chanting not being enough, really. But most teaching I've been hearing that chanting is the uppermost, and it could be the only thing that could gain you freedom.
Yes.
As long as you're sincere and you really put your whole heart in it. And
oh yes, definitely, Jolie. Please don't misunderstand me. If you are able to put your heart and soul into just chanting, then you will be recognized as a Mahatma. you know, in Vrindavans, you see many people who just have nothing else to do, but they were happy just chanting and chanting and chanting and chanting. But so there was this incident where a disciple told Prabhupada, look, Prabhupada, I just want to chant and chant and chant. I don't want to do anything else. I just don't want to be disturbed. I just want to live in the forest. I just want to chant and chant. So Prabhupada said, go ahead. So of course, these stories are read from or heard from different classes. So I'm just, you know, narrating that same story to you. So this devotee, he lasted 1 week, 2 weeks. Then after that, he couldn't handle the heat. He couldn't handle the lack of water, the lack of food. So you could chant with purity all your life, and you know, Krishna can connect you to him. But most of us aren't able to do that, Jolie Mataji, because the material senses are so strong that, you know, as it says, that you cannot control the mind, you cannot control anything at all. You know, see, as Arjuna says, it's far easier to control the wind and the mind. So it is difficult to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra 100%. If you are able to, you know, it'd be recognized as a Mahatma, no doubt about it. But for most of us, Krishna consciousness has been taken into practice by chanting the holy name of the Lord and preaching, and by following all the 9 processes of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Darshanam, Sankhya Mahatma Nivedanam. And also, as I mentioned to everyone, Jolie, that sometimes there are difficulties that we face in our spiritual life. If you look at many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, when Prabhupada initiated them, there was 10,000 disciples, but now you probably find about 1,000 of Srila Prabhupada disciples. What happened to them? Where did they all disappear? Because the material elements are so strong, it could carry away of a man of discrimination as well, who was trying to control them and endeavor to keep them controlled. So when we do go through difficulties in our life, when we lose somebody, a loved one, when we go through heartaches, maybe, you know, things that, you know, may be unforeseen in our future lives, you know, by reading the Shastras, by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, by understanding the difficulties the devotees had gone through, and prayed to Lord Vishnu for protection, for surrender, for help, assistance, like Arjuna, Indradev, you know, Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj. These are all wonderful stories, and they're not just stories, fable stories. They're not just like a fantasy stories or fairy tale stories. They're actually stories to help you understand. Like even Lord Indradev, he's lost his universe, he's lost his kingdom so many times that he keeps begging to Lord Vishnu, please, 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 I've lost my kingdom. Come and help me, come and help me. And Lord Vishnu still, no matter how many times he helps him, Lord Indra is still becomes envious of Lord Vishnu's supremacy. So just to round off, Jolie, Mataji, so just chanting the holy name is so important about purification. But as you know, chanting 16 rounds a day is very difficult as it is, because our minds are always flickering and wandering everywhere. So when you're able to control all your senses in every possible way, just like Ambarish Maharaj, to use every element of his senses for Krishna's purposes, then you're a pure devotee. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, yeah, that's really helpful. Also, Prabhuji, you mentioned about some classes, you hear different things, and I believe that some classes would say things like, you can control the mind, you must control the mind, and in reality it's not possible, is it? So as you said.
Yeah, that's right. In reality, it's not possible. So Krishna does tell Arjuna, when Arjuna is saying, you know, the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and it's so difficult to control. It's far easier to control the wind than the mind. So Krishna explains by practicing and practicing and practicing. We have to, I have to be honest, Jolie Mataji, this last 2 years, you know, the first year, because we had a lot of difficulties losing loved ones, the spiritual connection was there through Zoom and everything, which was really helpful. But then our mind gets bewildered, or I'm not really enjoying the Zoom. It's not personal. I'd rather see somebody face to face. And then you come to a real, bubble in your own heads, and you get all these voices in your heads. You think, shall I do this or shall I do that? Or I'm tired, I don't want to wake up early in the morning. So those kind of situations is so important when you aren't able to focus your mind, is to be able to speak to some authority, a mentor, a devotee that you can, how do you say, talk to in a very, very confidential way. Help me control my mind. What are the best ways? And you'll be surprised, even like through bite-sized sort of actions, you can slowly progress yourself to control the mind. And mainly it's refraining from doing some things, and that will help you, thinking of things that don't come in your mind. Like sometimes, you may watch a late night movie, then in your dream, in your consciousness, you think about those elements that you've seen in that movie. But when you see something which is spiritual, when I was watching a lot of Prabhupada videos, every day I was dreaming about Prabhupada, and I was so super surprised, as if he was actually there, talking to me, showing me different things, how I could become spiritualized, and things where I've gone wrong. But then I stopped watching them, and then, then other things come up. So sometimes it's just a matter of focusing our life and being with devotees who are more advanced than us to help us. And then we could use that same knowledge and experience by helping those who may not be as advanced or maybe going through difficulty like the way we were going through difficulties. Yeah, I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's wonderful. Yeah, it's good to put light on when you're not sure.
Yeah. Sure. There is another comment Sarabhi mentioned. I mean, it's up to everybody. I don't want to keep you waiting. I don't know. Let me just read it. I assume that's attribution. It's attribution rate of spirituality and inclination towards materialism directly proportional to hardships, according to Gita. What's the way
you talked about hardships, the attrition rate. I mean, the decline of spirituality and inclination more towards, worldly things. That's what I meant.
Yeah, sure. So actually, proportionally, spiritual life can be very, very easy. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that it could take 1 second of your life to become Krishna conscious by just saying, wow, this is what I want to do. It could take lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And that's mainly through offenses, committing offenses to the devotees, not following the rules and regulations, committing the offenses against the holy name, committing sins on the basis of the holy name as well. So that actually gives you more and more difficulty in your spiritual life. Generally, we have our own sort of karmic reactions based on our previous life, but the whole idea of this particular life is that we try and work in such a way that in our next life that we become less entangled in this material world, free from any miseries and sufferings that we have. But at the same time, that misery and suffering is also there to almost like a token reminder to understand what this material world is like, the difficulties that we face. What are we doing about it? How are we trying to overcome those difficulties? Just like Prabhupada is a pure devotee, the Pandavas who were pure devotees, Dhruva Maharaj was a pure devotee, Prahlad Maharaj were pure devotees, but they went through so much difficulties. Why? Because if we don't go through difficulties, then we become just laid back, expect a beautiful plate of prasadam, and just people fanning us and taking spiritual life very lightly. But proportionally, mature life is difficult as well. But in terms like distinguishing both, if you ask any devotee, spiritual life is tough, but material life is even tougher. So, the hardship is much harder in the material world, because if you can imagine, Sarabhi Mataji, at least in the spiritual world, if you hurt yourself, you say Krishna, but in the material world, you say a 4-letter word or something, not pleasing. But at least you've said the word Krishna, even though angrily you may cut yourself, but at least you've said the word Krishna. Krishna, just like Draupadi, when she was surrounded by this miscreant, tyrannical kings who wanted to disrobe her, how humiliating. She just prayed one hand to Krishna. Krishna didn't come. She lifted both hands. And who came to save her? Even her own husbands, Yudhishthira, Bhima, the strongest man in the universe at that time. They didn't save Draupadi from that miscarriage. but Krishna did. So difficulties are always going to be there, unfortunately. But more than thinking about difficulties in spiritual life, we think of an obstacle that we have to jump over that hurdle and see which way around we can actually do. And believe me, I've been through so many difficulties in my life, to that point where I'm thinking, why Krishna doesn't help me or answer me, but actually
I can understand.
after suffering so much, I found that something even better than that happened, something wonderful happened. And I can only look back, Krishna, you were just teasing me, you were just cheating me. And Krishna himself says that sometimes when a devotee is so dear to me, I take away all his material possessions, I take away his family and reject that person. But rejecting that person in a way that like a baby, sometimes when a baby cries and you walk away from him, they cry even more. They want their mom and dad, and you tease them, you walk away from the baby, but the baby cries more and crawls to you. So similarly, we're like little children. We just cry and cry for Krishna, even though we feel that he's walking away, but actually Krishna's just teasing us.
That's quite interesting. Thank you so much. Really
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Please say some humble obeisances once again.
Connecting to
before.
Kunti's story, Prabhu,
Yeah,
that is same as it. No pain, no value to your
yes,
life.
yes, that's right. Like, of course, we can never be on the level of Queen Kunti. She says
Yeah.
to Krishna, all this suffering was happening, but let it happen again, life after life. Only then I can think of you, Krishna. But most of us are thinking the opposite. Oh, please, Krishna, take the suffering away. But believe me, when you have an ice cream, you feel happy. But when you have a second ice cream, it's not the same. But when you have Krishna consciousness, no matter how much you have of Krishna consciousness, because it's spiritual by nature, it's non-different from Krishna, its name, form, qualities, pastimes. That's why we want more and more and more. And when you actually listen to senior advanced devotees who are far better speakers than me, you feel that connection straight away, even if they say just one word, even if you read just one word from the books, if you're not able to every day, just read one word. Srila Prabhupada guarantees that eventually Krishna will come and take your hand personally at the most difficult times in your life.
Prabhuji, it's so easy to give up when you're going through painful experiences, but you didn't. You persevere. You're still there. You believe in Krishna, so that's the helping hand.
Yes.
So well
yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And these are the things it enriches your life if you look at it in a positive way and not see it as, oh, why me, oh, poor me, and you think, oh no, it's not worth carrying on, all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
no,
you didn't, did you?
yeah, those thoughts come from Maya herself,
Yeah.
embedding certain unwanted thoughts in your mind. So when you come to unwanted thoughts, just think of a beautiful verse, beautiful shloka that
Yeah.
allows you to remain and focus your attention back to Krishna. And sometimes, I know it's not nice to say this, but sometimes we always think that we're going through difficulties, but when you see how harsh this material world is, when you see those people who's suffering, trying to cross over the ocean just to come to a better life,
Yeah.
dying, and people in the, I was just watching this documentary about genocides in different parts of the world. We hear about World War I and II, but there's unknown genocides in other parts of the world. How they suffered so much because they had a particular religion and they wanted to eliminate that religion so they could have their own religion predominating over their own religion. That's why when I mentioned about you have Krishna consciousness, you have Christianity, you have Buddhism, and you have Islam teachings. But of course, every teaching is defining you to the absolute truth, but it may be on a different level, different steps, just like the yoga ladder. And ultimately, it's based on time, place, circumstances, and the intelligence of that man at that time.
Excellent. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, everyone. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyaivacha patitana pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. So please, everyone who's listening, try your best to at least distribute one book. You feel so much happiness in your life. I did this little seva for Srila Prabhupada, for the community, for, the ISKCON, which is non-different from Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.